Welcome, everybody, to Creating a Food Preparedness Pantry. My name is Janice Imbrogno. I am a home economist, and I also work with essential oils, and I help people live happy and healthy lives. And my mission is to really help individual people. So tonight, please feel free to share anything that you want to about yourself and about what your needs are, so I can tailor this program to you. I have a lot of information, and we're going to get started. So welcome again. This is my website. I have 2 articles that I wrote about creating a food preparedness pantry on the website, and I have other healthy living articles. So if you're interested in more information after this program, or you'd like to read the articles, feel free to visit my website. And I gave you a little background on myself. This is about me coming from a home economics, family and consumer sciences background, and always being concerned about the well-being of the family. That is our mission. And I do work specifically with essential oils, among other natural products. So let's get to this program. Why are we preparing? It doesn't have to be all gloom and doom. Let me talk to you face to face, and I'll put the slides back. So sometimes people think, oh, I don't believe anything terrible is going to happen. I don't need that program. But that's not what we're preparing for. Yes, there could be a big natural disaster or something totally unexpected that we didn't see coming, and then we're going to want food in our pantry. But there are other things, such as illness. And when I go back to the slide, I have a little picture in the corner of a bandaged foot, and that was actually me, because I experienced this myself. It was about 5 years ago. I had to have major foot surgery, and I could not walk for 9 weeks. And that was a time where I wasn't as prepared as I am now, but I really could have used a preparedness pantry. That was planned, but sometimes illnesses come unexpectedly. Sometimes it might not be our immediate family, but a dear friend or loved one or someone in our extended family ends up in the hospital or in a rehabilitation center or something like that. And we just want to give our time to them. And the last thing we have in our mind is to go food shopping. So if we have a mini supermarket in our own home, because we created that, it's there for us. So let's go back to the slide and let's look at a couple of other reasons why you may even be interested in doing this. It could be your standard power outage or a brownout and less power. It could be a loss of a job. I spoke about the illness, but I've actually done this some months when money was a little tight. I said, you know what? I'm not going to shop so much in the supermarket. I'm going to use what I have at home. And having a full pantry allows you to do that. And then, I don't know how many of you are the people that the first sign of a weather report predicting snow, you're at the supermarket on the line buying bread and milk and that type of things. You don't have to do that if you have the food at home. And I will explain all this in more detail. And then we're going to start off talking about some supply chain issues. And of course, there are natural disasters. So if you have another reason why you took this program, please let me know. Now, this is one of the most important things before we start. We don't have a crystal ball. We can't predict. So in this program, I'm going to let you take the information I'm sharing and create what is best for your family. For some families, they want a month worth of food. Other families want to have a year's worth of food. We can't predict. But what this is a form of insurance. Now, some people think people who do this are crazy, and they might just go food shopping once a week and that's all they need, and they don't really stock up, and they say 3 months worth of food, a year worth of food, you're crazy. But you know what, this is how I view it. It's a form of insurance. We don't give, let me just have that for a minute. We don't give a second thought to buying health insurance or our car insurance or our homeowners or dental insurance, whatever it is. It's just known as a regular expense. But when it comes to such a precious commodity like food, we don't sometimes take the risk. Now, there's ways not to waste the food, and I will get into that. And I'll also share with you how to do this on a budget. But if you view it economically as an investment in insurance, know there's some risk. Maybe some food will go bad, but I think the risk is worth it. So I'm going to share, I'm going to talk about supply chain issues first, and I'm going to share a picture of my oldest son, James. I have 3 children, and James is 27. He has autism, and he's very high functioning. He loves to bake. So his favorite thing to make is pumpkin muffins. And I'll also just give you a little background. He lives in a group home, but he spends 1 week every month at home, and we always bake pumpkin muffins. So I don't know, maybe 2 months or so ago, I heard there was a canned pumpkin shortage. And the last thing I wanted to do is disappoint my son, especially because he doesn't understand as well. I went to my local supermarket, and this is a picture of the shelf where the canned pumpkin was. There was absolutely not a can of pumpkin. But because I created a pantry, you could see I put dates on, you can see some of them. This was my little collection of canned pumpkin at home. I have this stocked because I know I use it on a regular basis. And when this happened, I went to my supply, and James was happy and he made his pumpkin muffins. Now, 2 days ago, I was in my local supermarket, and I just added these slides in yesterday because this is real time. This is current. This is a major supermarket in my neighborhood. This is not normal, but this is what we're seeing. This, I don't know. I did research on it. They said the latest scarcity is tomatoes. I mean, we went through cream cheese, we went through pumpkin, we went through so many. I think there was chicken for a while. I don't know why there's these rolling shortages, and we're not going to get into that, but never in my life have I seen shelves this empty. Not only have I been shopping, with my home economics background, I used to do the food shopping for my mom since I was 12 years old. I've been shopping for my family forever. And as a home economics teacher, I was also in the supermarket for work to pick up foods for our foods classes. So I know what supermarket shelves are supposed to look like, and they don't. They're not supposed to look like this. This is our new reality. I put Progresso soup because my kids like chicorina soup, and I can't find that variety. This was the pasta aisle, which you can see some emptiness, and the oil, and these shelves were empty, and it's just very disconcerting. So we do have supply chain issues, we know that, and then prices are rising. So Poland Spring water used to be on sale 3 for $10. This said sale, and it said $5.59. That's a great increase. Oh, coffee was something that also was scarce for a while. I put tomatoes. There was a time when you couldn't get vinegar, eggs. It keeps changing, but we all see that prices are increasing. And I know personally, because I had stocked up, for example, I make my own natural cleaning products. So I had stocked up about 2 years ago on a lot of white vinegar, and it was like $1 something, and now it's like $4. So this really did work for me. And again, you don't have to spend a lot of money all at once. We'll get to that. And I'm telling you a lot of information. So again, don't hesitate if you want to use the chat or unmute yourselves, feel free. So these are some of the benefits. I kind of touched on them, but it's a good feeling. It makes you feel secure. I can't describe it other than I feel good that there's food in my house for my family, whatever comes. So then it's less stress and worry. You can handle things with ease. If you have a crisis in your family and your time is needed, or a lot of overtime happens at work, whatever it is, you can go through life with ease because you've planned meals and menus and you have the food in the house. It also saves gas because you're not running to the store as often, hedge against inflation, and we can help others. So I don't know your personal interest in this, but as I mentioned before, some people think you're crazy. My sister thinks I'm crazy. And even when she had no toilet paper and I was giving her toilet paper, she still thinks I'm crazy. But I know in my heart that I have extra stuff because I would help her and her family and other people that I know that don't do this. So it could be a very nice thing to do because not only are you helping yourselves and your family, but you can help others when it's needed. So here are a couple of tips. This is not hoarding, and people who prepare sometimes wrongly get labeled as hoarders. You can start this very gradually. Maybe after this class, you're going to be very motivated and you're going to say, I'm going to go spend an extra $100 or $200 and I'm going to start something really solid. But you don't have to do that. You can just start every week within your budget. Maybe something is on sale and you could pick up 2 of them. Or you just say, you know what? I'm going to pick up 5 jars. I would suggest tomato sauce because if this is true about tomatoes, I would get tomato sauce, ketchup, and salsa in, and tomato soup. But you say, you know what, I'm going to pick up 5 cans of tomato soup or whatever it is. And then next week, I'm going to pick up an extra roll of paper towels. And you do it gradually and you turn around. It's like saving for holiday gifts. The year goes by, and if you put a little money away, all of a sudden the year passes and you have food. So go at your own pace with this. Don't let it overwhelm you or discourage you. Don't make this, oh my God, something's going to happen. I'm so frightened. I got to get food in the house. That's not the attitude. I like to view this as my hobby because it does take work. You're labeling things, you're rotating things. So I view my pantry as my hobby, and I try to make it like something that I'm creating and that I feel good about and that I'm proud about. And it's a positive thing. Don't go into debt to buy your supplies. Just pick up something on sale. If it has to be one thing a week, that's fine. And then also, for some of the food you prep, consider how you're going to cook it if there's a power outage. So for example, if you have all foods that require heat and you don't have heat, well, do you have a propane barbecue? Do you have a gas stove that could be lit? Do you have a camping stove that takes the little propane tanks? What are you going to do to heat things? You can sometimes with canned foods gently warm them with a little tea light. And if you get a cast iron trivet, or you get a terracotta clay pot, sometimes you could warm the trivet or the clay pot and then put a can on it and it will gently warm the contents of the can. If you buy pastas, buy very thin angel hair or very small piece pastas because they can cook quicker in water that's not as hot. So not all your food has to be that, but think about how am I going to cook this food that I'm going to, that I'm going to store. So have some food that doesn't require cooking. Okay, so we're going to plan it. Now this picture, mine is not this big. This is somebody who is has a extensive, maybe a year's worth of food. I'm not exactly sure, but really another important point is buy what your family likes, because in times of crisis, the last thing you want to do is eat food you don't like. So beans and rice are popular prepper food. I have some rice and I have some beans because they are great fillers. They extend meals. They're easy to store. They last long. But my family is not a big beans and rice. They're not big bean and rice eaters. So I don't have a lot of it. So get foods that you like. And also you're going to start looking at expiration dates. Don't buy, let's say, for example, if mayonnaise lasts 6 months, don't buy 5 mayonnaise if you hardly ever use it, just occasionally spread it on a sandwich because it will go bad. And also be cognizant of where you're going to store this, because you don't want to put it in an attic where it's hot and humid, and garages are not always good because animals and rodents can get in. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. So you're going to buy food you like, you're going to eat it, and you're going to rotate it. And that's what takes time. So when I come home from the supermarket, I just can't throw my items on the shelf because I have a large quantity of things. And then the stuff in the back is going to go bad. So I date my food, which I will, I'll show you now. Let's stop. Let me show you. Well, here's an example. I wish I was neater, but for me, it's quick. I have a roll of masking tape and a marker near my pantry. And the dates, do you see how hard that is to read? Well, maybe it's magnified now with the camera, but for me, I have to get my glasses. Sometimes the print is in the ridges. and you don't want to be squinting at your shelf. I want to move fast. So that's the best thing. Even when put, like, for example, I put some pasta in a mason jar, I put the date on it. And we'll talk about expiration dates and how that works, but date it and rotate it, and that will keep things moving along very well, and that will really help eliminate any waste. And then decide, are you going to be the 3 months type of prepper and have food that lasts for 1 or 2 years, or are you going to do long term? And let me show you freeze dried. I have a few that I bought just in case for insurance. I don't have a year's worth of food, but people who store really long term will get freeze dried food. So this is freeze dried apples, and it says in the back, this lasts 25 years because they freeze dry it, they take the moisture out. Moisture is an enemy, air, light, and oil. That's what spoils your food. So when it's freeze dried, it's in a covered container. I keep it in a cool, dark place. This is going to last 25 years. I would probably use it maybe if I don't think I would keep it more than 5 or so years. And then maybe I'd bake with them, I'd rehydrate them, make desserts with them, that kind of thing. You can even eat dried apples, but you can also buy food that will last very long. So if that is your concern, and I know there is the Mormon church, the LDS church, they really are very big, and they have a lot of resources on long-term food storage because they really do believe in that, and they are, like I said, a really good resource. Okay, so this is the dream kitchen I wish I always had, only I wish I had, and maybe you're lucky enough to have a beautiful pantry like this, a beautiful walk-in pantry right off the kitchen. Most people don't, but you have it. If you have it, organize it, set it up, and enjoy, and that's awesome. But we have to think of practical ways when we don't have space. One is shelving, and one is, don't forget, vertical space. Sometimes things can be stacked high and shelves can be put up high, and we don't think of that. So here are some ideas. One are totes. Now this is my actual basement and food pantry area, and I have a couple of extra. I have a corner of my basement. That's what I use. I do have an extra second refrigerator, but I always had that because I have a small home. My kitchen won't allow one of the new, more modern big refrigerators. So I've always needed a second refrigerator. Some of you may have one in your garage, and that's fine. That could, that's sealed well and that's safe. I also, about 2.5 years ago, I bought this chest freezer from Target. It wasn't expensive, and it gave me a lot of extra freezer space. But as you can see, I use totes, and that's one thing besides shelves. I have, like, I think there's different flours in here, and there's sugars in here, and there's baking things in one, there's dried fruits in one. I think I have cassava flour in one, and I've since stacked that higher, but that's just one practical when you don't have a big pantry. Then I bought this heavy duty tote that I don't have critters in my house, but just in case. This is really pretty solid, and I keep things in there, and totes, and a crate, and I do have a few extra kitchen cabinet. I don't have a kitchen in my basement, but I do have a couple of kitchen cabinets because I have a small kitchen. But if you have some empty walls and you have a basement that you can put things like this, or you could do your garage, but again, your shelf life is not going to be long if it gets hot in there. You could put canned foods in there. I will get to this. I don't like to have too many boxed foods, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I definitely do have some. And then think of wasted storage space. So for example, if you go in your closets and look up, there may be areas high up in your closets to put an extra shelf or two. Some people will store food in totes under their bed. I'm not a fan of that, but if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do if it gives you peace of mind. This was a clever solution. This was a bench at a kitchen table, and the cover came off, and they used 10-gallon plastic buckets, and they stored food in that bench. So sometimes there's space under a staircase, the back of the door. Sometimes you could get a hanging rack for the back of your door. So if you're creative, maybe you want to maybe you want to clean things out. Maybe creating your food preparedness pantry might be a time to declutter and to go through things. Maybe there's an extra closet in your house that you don't need, or part of a closet or closet floor. Just, be creative and use the resources that you have in your home. Anything is better than nothing at all. This was a clever solution. This person bought a shelving unit from IKEA, which we know is not very expensive, and it was the perfect. They had no other room for a pantry, and look what a clever idea that was. I just thought that was great. So you can, be creative. So just to review, we're going to rotate through our food. We're going to label the dates. We're going to include food that doesn't need much or any cooking. We're going to store in a cool, dark place away from sunlight. We're going to buy things your family likes. And I forgot to say, include treats. So if you are a coffee drinker and you have to have your morning coffee, make sure you have coffee in your house. Maybe you want to have some chocolate or some cookies or something, especially in a disaster, that will be a treat for your individual family members. Of course, based on your nutritional needs, but everybody needs a treat here and there. So I'm going to start speaking about some specific foods, and I just want to remind you, if you want to stop me, feel free to unmute yourselves, but remember we're recording, and also feel free to use the chat. So water is the most important thing, and here are just some ideas for water storage. First of all, you can always clean out garbage pails, really clean and collect rainwater and use that for washing the dishes, laundry, washing your hands, that type of things. For ingestion, you want clean, pure water. These are not always the best suggestions, and they're not perfect, but they help. So I'm not a fan normally of bottled water because some of the chemicals in the plastic leach into the water. And even if you don't keep it in a hot place, it was in a hot truck and it was in a hot warehouse. So I do have many of these at home for emergencies, and my kids will drink them occasionally. And then I'm like, that's for emergency. But I do have that. I also have big 5-gallon, or is it 10-gallon? I'm not sure, the big Poland Spring jugs in the hard plastic, which I think is safer. This is a Berkey filter. This filters out a lot of harmful substances. So does this portable Life straw. I can't guarantee, I'm not a microbiologist, so I can't guarantee that it's going to kill everything, but they have both a Berkey, Berkey, and Life Straw have very, very good ratings if you do some of your own research to filter water. And the nice thing about the Berkey is it works on gravity, so you don't need, it's not an electric filter. If there's any concern, always boil your water. I don't know if it kills everything 100%. It's certainly going to help, and then you let it cool. And they sell tablets and pills, and you can also use just a tiny drop of pure chlorine bleach, not fragranced, to help, purify your water. You can also, they always say, fill your bathtub. They make bathtub liners that you can fill a whole bathtub. Remember, you can always collect rainwater. And but water, you're going to need it for cooking and grooming and to keep yourself hydrated. So water I put first because that really is number one. Unfortunately, it's bulky and it's not easy to store, but we do our best with it. Okay, so now I just want to tell you, so how do I start? If you're not overwhelmed yet, you might be saying, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start. So now I'm going to show you where to start. And these are handouts that Jen will email you after the program. I'm going to send her a PDF of these. So you start with a blank monthly calendar and fill it in with meals that you would really serve your family for a month. Now, not to overwhelm yourself, just do it for family dinners. If you want to make a list of 10 different lunches or 20 different lunches you enjoy, or if you want to also do this for lunch and the same for breakfast, just plan out what you would typically feed your family for a month. That's where you start because those are the foods you like. Then you can fill in a little rice and beans, a little, like for example, I never used to use canned food. but now that I prep, I do. So I do have canned foods that might not be in my normal monthly plan, but they're there. And my kids will occasionally, they want a snack, they want a quick lunch, they'll heat up a can of soup. So we incorporate it in, but those are the extras. Then you're going to get a handout like this. Pick 1 week from your monthly and write down your meals Monday, Sunday through Saturday, and then make a shopping list. And then go to the store and fill in what you don't have for a week. And if you can buy extras, buy some extras, but that's where you start. Okay. Also, have your recipes hard copied, printed, and have cookbooks. Because if you rely on the internet and the internet goes out, you may forget how to cook certain things. So it's always important. That's a really important point. And that was that. Okay, so now we have to talk about the shelf life. Again, water content, oil content is going to spoil your food faster. That's why the dehydrated foods last so long. Oil, let me just give you a quick example. I have some brown rice right here. And I vacuum sealed this, and I will talk about vacuum sealing in a minute, but it's like a rock because there's no air in here. But brown rice is not ideal for prepping because it has the full grain, which contains oil, and it will spoil faster. White rice is better, but I labeled it and I put the instructions on here, and I'll show you vacuum sealing later. But that's an example. Your oils, like I can't buy too much olive oil because it's not going to last forever. So you have to, keep that in mind. Okay, and then a lot of times the date on the food is not an expiration date. It's a best by date. There's no really regulation on this. And companies sometimes just do it to be like, because the consumer likes it, but they don't tell us, is it a best by date? Is it an expiration date? We don't really know. So especially with canned foods, they basically last indefinitely. If the can is bulging in any way or cracked or dented, just throw it away. Just throw it away. Never taste anything that smells or looks off. Just get rid of it. It's not worth getting sick over. But what happens is over time, like I've been using up some canned food that's 6 months old and it's perfectly fine. But over time, you can lose nutritional value and you can lose quality, taste, texture. It just may not be as good as the best by dates. There are perishables, like if milk is sour, milk is sour. Yogurt usually lasts a little bit longer than the date that they put on it because it could be a sell by date. We really don't know. So use your best judgment with that. And also the containers matter. So let's talk a little bit about containers. I want to show you a couple of things that I do. You saw my picture, and I did have a lot of boxed foods. But bugs and larvae from the supermarket get into things. So I wish I could have more things stored in glass or hard plastic, but there's the practical aspect too. But you don't want to keep boxed food around too long. It's just, not the best. So 2 things I found. One, this is an airtight container and there's many sizes and shapes. This is from the brand Oxo. And I'm not promoting any brands. I just want to share this with you. The price of this has gone up significantly in the last 2 years. It has a pop top and I put crackers in there and they absolutely, see, I cut the box off and I put the date and it's nice. They have to be in a cabinet because it is clear. So you don't want to get, sunlight spoilage, but just the fact that the container is airtight and it's hard plastic and I got it out of the cardboard. I like that. Now, Rubbermaid has a version and theirs is Brilliance and they make their products both in glass and in hard plastic. I love this product. But again, the price, a container like this has to be like $18. It was never like that before. So I'm going to just I have some Ritz crackers in here, but I also vacuum sealed some, so I'll put that aside for later. But I did put, I don't think I have the expiration because my family was eating these fast. And this is the hard plastic, but I also have the glass ones for leftovers. And it does keep things airtight and it keeps it longer. So that's a good container. Another container are mason jars. I love mason jars, especially the wide mouth ones. Let me show you the difference. I don't know how many of you are familiar. This is a standard mouth mason jar, and that's a wide mouth. The wide mouth is easier to scoop things out of. I love it because it's glass. The price of this has also gone up. The only thing with this is glass is heavy, so it's going to weigh down your shelves, whereas these containers are much lighter on your shelf. And light can get in. So of course you want to close the cabinet. The area where I have my food pantry, even though all my food is not closed up in cabinets, it's a corner of my basement that just has a little tiny basement window, and I have a curtain over it so it doesn't get exposed to light. But I do love mason jars. Here's one with oatmeal in it, and of course I dated it. I really do it. There's something nostalgic about those kind of jars too. So those are some ideas for storage. I will show you some vacuum sealing in just a moment. So here's pictures of what I showed you. The other thing I want to show you is Mylar bags. Now, Mylar bags are a favorite of people who do some long-term prepping. And I don't have much success with them. I bought them just because I'm teaching this and I wanted to learn more myself. This is like the Mylar balloons. And what people do, not bugs, rodents can eat through this. So after you store your food in this, you have to put it in a 10-gallon bucket or container or something really heavy duty. So what you do is you put your food in there, and then you use something called an oxygen absorber. These are little packets and they have iron fillings in them, and the iron absorbs the oxygen. There still may be air in here because nitrogen is air too, but it's the oxygen that spoils things. It oxidizes. And just a quick way to remember this, you all know what happens when you cut an apple, how it turns brown. That's a chemical reaction. That's oxidation. That's how oxygen spoils food. So when we do the vacuum sealing, I'm going to show you why that's advantage too. I keep these sealed in a mason jar because if you leave them out, they'll lose their effectiveness. So you put your food in here, and people do it, with rice and stuff like that. So here's when I put popcorn kernels in here. And I put the oxygen absorbers, and then you seal the bag. Even though it has a zip top, you seal it with either a home iron, a flat iron that you use for your hair, or they have a device that irons it closed. But it didn't get as airtight as I thought. Maybe it'll take another, I just resealed this afternoon. It may take a little while. If you're into long-term prepping, it's great. But for the average person, I don't know how necessary it is, but I thought that this wouldn't be complete without showing you that. And then I'd like to show you a vacuum sealer. So this is like my new favorite toy. I wonder if any of you have it. It is an investment in money. The one that kind of model, which I'm going to show you in a moment, cost about very approximately $80, but the plastic bags cost money. And let me just stop there for a minute. And I'm not a fan of plastic, but when it preserves my food, then I will do it. And sometimes I'll put a package in to protect from the plastic. But anyway, I think for me, it's worth the investment. I use it. I really use my vacuum sealer so often, and I'm going to show you now how to use it. And I'm going to do my best to do this on Zoom, but I have a small one and I have a large one. So I'm just going to push my computer away, like a little further away for a moment, and see if the best view you can get of this vacuum sealer. I will hold it up in just a moment, but let me show you. You can buy plastic bags for your items, or you can buy just a roll. And when you have a roll, you seal it. So I'm going to try to do this backwards, and I will hold it up. So I'm going to seal. So you make your own bag. You put the bag in there. Let me just get it closed, and then I'll hold it up while I'm sealing it. This is the trickiest part of this class doing on Zoom. Okay, so I closed it and then I'm going to hit seal. Okay, and that is just going to, when that light goes out, I'm going to take it out. And okay, it went out. So now I'm going to open this up. And you can see that my bag has a seal there. So now I'll just, let me do something quickly. Let me grab some scissors. Just like you to see how this works. I'm going to cut the bag. I'm just making a small bag because we'll just do, just do a little something for fun. Let me see what I can open up. Oh, you know what? I'll put some oxygen absorbers in there and I'll seal it. That would be a great idea. Because they can't have the air. So that would be really good for them. I'll close the rest of these up right away. Because I have food already sealed, so I don't want to open it. So the great thing about this was a good example. You don't just have to use it for food. Some people use it for other items, like maybe medications when they're traveling or something like that. Okay. See, I put it in here and I'm going to close it and I'm going to. You see the air coming out? Just wait for that to go out. Minute, it's just sealing it. It should shut off. There it goes. I'll open it up. Oh, I have to use that. Again, I apologize. This is the hardest part of doing this on Zoom. Let me put this down and show you the package. And I would like to show you a few of the packages that I have sealed. So you can see this is kind of like hard. It's all the air is out of there. And that's another great way to seal your oxygen absorbers. But let me show you some other food. You might be surprised, like you might say, well, how do I store dairy over a long time? There is powdered butter. There's powdered milk, which you're familiar with. This is powdered cream cheese. So I actually kept it in its original container. I opened it up so some of the air would be sucked out. And see, it's like a rock because all the air is out of here. And then I did, this is for long-term storage. This is like, I have baking soda for my current projects, but I did this for baking soda also. So that was that. And then I sealed some nuts. And let me just tell you, nuts, we'll get to individual foods, but nuts can be stored for long term this way. They do have a high oil content, but if you can put these in your refrigerator and even your freezer. And then if you have them in an airtight container, they will last much, much longer than you planned. So I use it for that, but let's just say, for example, I buy 4 chicken thighs and my family eats 2. Now the other 2 chicken thighs will stay in the refrigerator, say, let's just say 2 days. But if I vacuum seal it, it will last longer. They say it lasts up to 5 times longer. And I had shown you the Ritz crackers. They were in their individual things, but this is also good like for camping or a road trip or something, and you don't want things to get wet. So anyway, that's vacuum sealing. And again, gather your questions. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. Oh, you can also seal mason jars. I forgot to show you that. So I have another vacuum sealer right here set up. And I use the accessory port. And I'm not going to do this because it's hard to manage on the Zoom, but I have this lid which fits on the mason jar. And that way I can store things. So for example, this pasta is airtight in this mason jar. And the way I know is it doesn't, when I press on this, there's no give. All the air is sucked in. I have something here. So I also put some baking powder. I didn't want all the cardboard, so when I can eliminate it, I can. So I put it in a mason jar, but this one isn't sealed yet because you see how that moves? That means there's air in it. And I think I showed you oatmeal before. I had oatmeal in a mason jar and I put some popcorn kernels in also. So there's just different things. Sometimes I do pistachio nuts and, you use your imagination and what things your family likes. So there's our vacuum sealer. Some people have their own food dehydrators. I showed you the commercially dehydrated food, but if you have one, that's great because you can dehydrate food and make it last longer. And this is another whole class in itself. So we won't get into specifics now, but some people use mason jars and they do their own home canning. Maybe they make their own preserves or their own tomato sauce from tomatoes they grew in the garden, or, any other fresh produce. Some people even can meat and poultry. So that's another option for food storage. And this is really a review. This is the 5 or 10 gallon bucket. I still want to do this. People say if you go into a bakery or a pizza place, they get their flour and supplies in these big plastic containers. They may give you one or sell you one, or you can buy them on Amazon or elsewhere. But again, the price has gone up significantly. It serves the same purpose as a tote, but it does help keep rodents and pests away. I mentioned this. I want to just show you a written inventory and teach you 2 things about refrigerators and freezers. So this is really messy. I don't want you to read it because it's messy, but this is a working inventory for my freezer downstairs. You don't want those chest freezers are usually not self-defrosting. We are all spoiled. I don't know if any of you are as old as I am, and we grew up with our moms defrosting the freezer with like an ice pick and a bowl of hot water and things like that. But a lot of people don't know that not all freezers are frost free. So those chest freezers are not frost free. You want to keep them filled to capacity. One hint that I have is I make ice cube blocks and circles. I'll use bowls or other containers and I'll freeze ice this thick in a disc, or in a square is actually more efficient. Then I'll pop it out of the container. I'll put it in a Ziploc bag and I put that in the bottom of my freezer. The reason is because if we do have a power outage, I'm going to use my frozen food first. I'm going to keep the freezer closed as much as possible, but I'm going to grab those ice chunks and put them in either a cooler or my refrigerator to at least preserve the refrigerated food and keep the refrigerator at a cold temperature. So you can do that, but you don't want to open that freezer a lot. In my house, I put some heavy and bulky things on top because I don't want my kids going in there. That is pure long-term storage. If I open it once every 2 weeks, that's what I do. But that's why I have an inventory, because I'm not going to open it up. The other thing, it goes true just even for your refrigerator in your kitchen, stock it full. And that could be bottles of water. If you have an extra soda bottle and there's a whole empty shelf on your refrigerator, fill the soda bottle with water and keep it chilled in there. If you have empty mason jars, fill them with water, because a refrigerator runs much more efficiently when it's full. If there's empty space, it needs more electricity to chill that empty space. But if there's more cold objects in there, once those objects are chilled, they're going to help maintain the cooler temperature. So that's just a little hints and tips about refrigerators and freezers. It is a good idea to have a generator. So if the power goes out, you can at least keep one refrigerator or freezer going. They do sell alarms on Amazon that you can put on your freezer so that even if somebody walks by and kicks the plug out and it's not a power outage, but if the temperature starts going up, the alarm will go off. So I hope that is helpful to you to know a little bit about refrigerators and freezers. Okay. All right, so now I'm just going to give you a couple of ideas of different categories of food and how you can store them and purchase different varieties. So I freeze ice cubes of buttermilk. I have a favorite banana bread recipe, but I don't make it that much. It requires a half cup of buttermilk, but I have to buy a quart of buttermilk each time. So I've done 2 things. Most of the time I freeze the cubes and I put them in a bag and I keep them in my freezer. Sometimes I even vacuum seal it, but then they crunch together a lot. And then whenever I need buttermilk for recipe, I have it. But they do sell, here's buttermilk powder. If an emergency, you can reconstitute that if you have water. There's Parmalat milk, which is ultra, ultra, ultra pasteurized. So it doesn't need refrigeration. There's evaporated milk and sweetened condensed milk. Evaporated milk, they take 60% of the water out. Sweetened condensed milk, they add sugar as a preservative. I love coconut milk, but rather than keeping containers of it, I buy coconut milk powder. You can get dry whole milk and you can get it in individual packages. This Nido beverage is, they have for children and for adults, it's just a fortified milk, but those are great different forms of milk that you can have in. Cheese, I did, because cheese is hard to store long-term, but you can freeze it. So here's an example of freezing it, and here's an example of the freeze-dried. Soft cheeses such as cottage cheese or cream cheese don't freeze too well. Eggs, you can get dried whole eggs. You can get the egg powder or scrambled egg powder mix, or you can get an egg replacer. This is not, this one here by my cursor is not actually an egg, but if you're baking and you don't have eggs, you can use that. You can use applesauce. You can use, here's some ideas: mashed banana, flax seeds, water, yogurt, buttermilk, nut butter. So if you need to bake something and you don't have an egg, you have a lot of different ideas. But if you want to have some form of eggs in the house, you can actually freeze eggs. I don't know if the quality is really as good. I've tried it, but what you would do is just beat up and mix each individual egg. You would get a silicone muffin tin and you would put each like beaten egg in the tin, freeze them, and then pop them out and store them in a freezer safe bag. And in an emergency, that will work. It might not be the tastiest eggs, but it, you know what, it definitely will work. Here, people don't think that there is canned meat. People might be surprised to think that there's canned chicken. And there's beef jerky, and here's freeze-dried pork. Of course, there's always Spam, and there's canned, canned sardines. This is canned tuna, but you can get meat, protein, meat, fish, and poultry in cans. Nuts and nut butter. You can freeze your nuts, as I told you before. Here's an example. I have nuts like this I keep in the fridge, and the peanut butter and nut butters, just watch the dates because they're high in oil, so they do not have a long shelf life. And the same thing with your fats and oils. I freeze butter. I have a lot of frozen butter. They say it lasts 6 months. It lasts long. I think it lasts longer in the freezer, especially the freezer that I'm not opening all the time. Those things are going to stay longer because hot air is not being introduced. I love ghee. Ghee is butter fat without the milk solids, and you can cook with this at a very high temperature. It's great to grease your pans with, and avocado oil is also great for that. Olive oil, they're much healthier. I won't go into nutrition, but you don't want to use like vegetable oil or canola oil and any of the seed oils, grapeseed. They're very inflammatory. So, as much as you can, get healthy things. You want to have sweeteners. This is my cabinet. I have stored a lot of sugar in mason jars. You don't want to make it airtight because if you do, the sugar will get hard as a brick. But I also have some in totes. But sugar is very important because I want to be able to bake in emergencies. I also have a lot of honey. Honey doesn't spoil. It will crystallize, but you can just soften that up. Molasses, agave syrup, maple syrup. I like stevia. I stay away from all artificial sweeteners because if you do some research on that, they're really not good for you. I have brown sugar. Brown sugar, I do vacuum seal and it stays very, very soft. Flour and grains, they're going to have larvae in it. You can't avoid it. It's just, you don't see it, but it's in the supermarket. So I always freeze my grains first. If I bring pack like a sack of flour home like this, it goes in the freezer for 10 days. Some people have different opinions. Some say 3 days, some say 3 days on, 3 days off. Some people say 7 days, but I like to freeze my flour initially and keep it in a moisture-proof container in the refrigerator. Some people will like to vacuum seal it. Sometimes I do that, but you can freeze flour and it just comes out like cold powder. And cornmeal has some oil in it, and there's oatmeal and other grains, but You definitely want to have greens, and you want to have baking supplies. If you're not a baker, you may want to experiment and learn to make some bread or muffins or biscuits or things that would keep your family happy. Baking powder can go out of date. I don't know if you know the difference between baking soda and baking powder, so I will explain it. I should have grabbed some baking. Oops, dropped something. This is baking soda, and this is the same thing. It's not the same thing, but baking soda is like Arm& and Hammer baking soda. This is a pure form. So this is just sodium bicarbonate. It's an alkaline, it's a base, and you use it in baking because it mixes with an acid such as lemon juice or buttermilk, and it helps the product to rise. Baking powder is a mixture of baking soda plus an acid. Now, baking powder will expire and it won't help the product rise after a while. So you want to have on hand cream of tartar. Cream of tartar plus baking soda equals baking powder, and that will make your product rise. And cream of tartar either doesn't expire or has a very, very long shelf life. So if you are going to bake, yes, have baking soda and cream of tartar in addition to this, okay? And chocolate chips, milk powder, just everything you would need to bake, anything that your family may need. And then don't forget your condiments and your spices and sauces and different things that will complete a meal, salad dressings. And fruits and vegetables, of course, you can get, I have this freeze-dried broccoli. I have some canned fruit. This is a dehydrator. This is dehydrating some food. And the snacks and treats that I spoke about, I try to pick healthy things. If possible, popcorn. I showed you popcorn kernels. People forget you can put a little oil in a pan and make your own popcorn. Okay, so now we'll just talk about prepping within your budget. Have a mental inventory and a written inventory and know what you have. Because if you don't know what you have, you're not going to use it. Shop with your friends if you can. Share. If you go to like a big box store like BJ's or Costco, maybe you can split some items. Maybe you can drive each other. Maybe, buy generic brands. Make this an ongoing project. Always when you're in the supermarket, check the dates. Like if I'm in the supermarket and there's just say these are 2 cans of food, I'm going to read the same food. I look at the dates and I pick the one that's furthest off. I'm the shopper that's got her hand in the back of the aisle to get the salad all the way in the back or the butter all the way in the back, because that usually has the longest out shelf date. Shelf, you can just go to your shelf one day and say, well, what can I make? A shelf shop, in your own like little mini supermarket. Clean out your refrigerator meal. Have breakfast for dinner sometimes, but I do want to alert you to allrecipes.com. This is great. So say you have some leftovers. Let's just say you have some onions, some chicken, some tomato sauce, and broccoli. Put those ingredients in allrecipes.com and it's going to come out with a recipe for the ingredients you have. Say I have ripe bananas and I'm just sick of making my banana bread. I can put ripe bananas and maybe I have chocolate chips or just ripe bananas in allrecipes.com and it'll give me recipes. So that's a great resource. Think about being creative with what you have. What can I put together? What can I throw in a salad? What can I throw in a casserole? What's on my shelf? Just use it all, and that will help save you money. And of course, you can bake instead of buying prepared baked foods. And then, like, for example, when I make banana bread, I freeze it because it doesn't have the preservatives. So it won't last as long, but it's better for your health. All right, couple of things about saving money that I want to show you. One is I save money on paper towels because I buy these little white washcloths. Amazon, I think it was a pack of 24, relatively inexpensive. We use these in our bathroom and in our kitchen. It's so easy to just pick up a paper towel and it's costing you money. It's not good for the environment. And there was a time where they were hard to find. I will use a paper towel when I clean my toilet bowl. I will use a paper towel if I have chicken or meat juice. That's a safety consideration. That all has to do with germs and bacteria. But if I'm just wiping my hands, I don't need to tear off some paper towel, wipe, and throw it in the garbage can. Or if I'm cleaning off my kitchen counter, these are so versatile and you save money. And the other thing is, you're doing laundry anyway. So let's say you do one load a day or one load every other day. Whatever of these that you accumulate from your family in the day, there's going to be space in that load. They don't take up a lot of space. And they're not going to cost you much. And I think there's such a time saver. So I'm a big fan of that. I also never thought I would do this. I think my grandmother used to do it, but she lived through World War II and I think World War I. But I'm saving foil now. I'm starting to realize what a waste, how much money I spend on foil. The price also has gone up. And of course, if there's raw meat or poultry or even cooked meat juice, I wouldn't save this. But if I heat up some breads or rolls or sometimes even French fries in the oven, I will wipe this clean and I will reuse foil. I prefer parchment paper because foil has aluminum in it, but I do use it sometimes. This was a tray that came with, I'm also not a fan of microwaving. It came with some microwave, I don't remember, hors d'oeuvres or something, and I cooked them in the regular oven, but I saved the tray. So start thinking of like different ways that you can economize. Maybe you can, if make food shopping a social event, if it works for you and you have a friend and you can go together and, 1 week I drive, one week you drive. I also happen to love riding my bicycle and I bought a nice basket for my bicycle. So if there is a local store that I can ride to, I get the exercise and the fresh air. I lock up my bicycle, but I can pick up a few small things. So, just try to be creative. Maybe, try to do a big shop for a couple of weeks and then maybe you can walk to a place where you can get your first produce or have it delivered if the price works for you. But there are different things that you can do. And remember, you don't have to create this all at once, stock up on sale items and et cetera, et cetera. So that's what that slide said. And let's see, we have just a few more. Yeah, well, almost at the end. I just want to tell you, you can extend meat. Meat and poultry is expensive, but you can add beans and lentils, rice, oats, dried mushrooms, all the things on that list. Don't throw away stale bread. Toast it and make breadcrumbs, but you can add to your meat dishes and extend them and then make each serving less on your budget. And again, a whole nother class, but if you're so inclined, I started 3 years ago. This is my third summer gardening. I'm learning a lot. There's so much on YouTube that you can learn, but I am very happy that I have not had to buy cucumbers for the whole month of August. I have so many cucumbers and tomatoes, and it's just a really nice, satisfying feeling, and it helps you feel in control. It doesn't last, all long, but anyway, just to review some safety, if you're in doubt, throw it out, don't eat it. Watch for mold, bugs, bacteria, rodents. I told you about the water content and the fat content, and usually the date is peak quality, but of course, perishable foods will sour. And don't forget your pets. They need water, so make sure you are saving some water for them and that you have food stored for them too. And just a quick reminder this could be another whole class, but just remember your health and beauty aids, your medical preps, your household items. These are some resources. You can screenshot this, feel free, but I am going to also send this to Jen so she will have this to share with you. This first resource, I just want to stop for a second. I printed it out. It's really big, but it is chock full of information. It's called A Guide to Food Storage, and you're going to get the link, but it's showing, when I'm doing that, it's showing the half pages, but there's a lot of information in that. So you'll get the link for that. And then The other resources, I just personally happen to like this YouTube channel, Mary's Nest. She's a very sweet lady that has a lot of her videos about food preparation. And the Department of Agriculture has some information, and the government has food safety charts. So I'm going to send this all to you. And pat yourself on the back. You know, just the fact that you showed up tonight, that you were interested, that you're doing something for your family, you should be really proud of yourself, because a lot of people don't. And when emergencies strike, they don't have it as easy as they could have had it. So again, I'm going to finish up, and then that is my website. And again, there are articles there about food, creating a food pantry. There are 2. And I'm going to ask Jen now to stop the recording, so that if any of you do want to use the chat, or if you do want to unmute yourself, ask any questions, make any comments,